Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Whether you've been a longtime supporter of Elastic or just discovering us, we are super excited and thrilled to have you on this live stream today. And it looks like we're going to have a super engaging and enlightening conversation as we dive into the theme of embracing your identity and taking ownership of career. So now, we're not just here to just share information. We're here to connect. So let's start this thing off, and everyone go ahead and drop your locations in the chat box. Let's see all the diverse parts of the world that we're all joining from. Costa Mesa, okay. I love the mall up there. So it looks like California is representing. It's good to know. I'm in California as well. I'm in LA, so not too far. We'll wait for a few others if there's any. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's much. But, speaking of connections, I really like to give a special shout out to our Blastician employee resource group here at Elastic. This year, they've aligned the Black History Month theme to that of the world's largest museum and research institution, which is the Smithsonian. And so we'll be highlighting African Americans as the art and the arts in line with the Smithsonian. Okay, we have some more LA, Bay Area, Kenya. All right. Yeah, LA, California's in the house. Kenya, haven't made it there yet, but hopefully we can make that happen. So let's note this, that, as we delve into today's topic, let's remember that this is a conversation. So your thoughts, questions, insights are welcome. They're encouraged. So let's make this a great experience together, and please ask questions as we go. So with that being said, I'd like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and to describe your career paths. And we can start with Janita.
Oh boy. Yeah. I was ready for Daryl to take it away. So hi, everybody. My name is Janita O'Connor. I'm a senior corporate counsel here for Business Integrity, coming from New York. My career progression. I am a career compliance and ethics professional. This is what I love to do. My bread and butter. My heart pitter patters for this. I focused on this stemming from law school. After I graduated, I worked in the nonprofit sector for some time before switching over to tech. And I'm just really happy to be here.
Awesome. My name is Daryl Peak. I'm a senior director for U.S. Public Sector Channels. So I'm responsible for partnerships across the federal government and also state, local, and education. Really excited to be here today. As far as career journey, I've been at Elastic for about 11 months now. Prior to coming to Elastic, I worked at Google for a few years, as well as Salesforce. And I also was a federal government employee. So I worked at the Department of Homeland Security in their Chief Technology Office and Cybersecurity Office. And many moons ago, I worked at a company called Lockheed Martin, where I supported the intelligence community and just being able to support satellites in unmanned air vehicles. So really excited to be here. I've always been engaged with different types of employee resource groups and also helping to bring people together. So partnerships is what I do. And I'm really excited to be at Elastic doing partnerships.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you guys for those introductions. It's great to hear what other people do. And we're going to dig into those, right? Everything that you said will probably come back around full circle. So we appreciate that insight into your journeys. Now, with those same elements in mind, can you share with us how the arts have helped to shape your identity and play a role in your careers today? Daryl, you can start this one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Khalil. And really excited about this topic because as we look at creativity and what that stems from, when we talk about arts, that is what it essentially is. It's our ability to bring creativity to the forefront, whether it's what we say, how we dress, how we dance, what music we listen to. So I'll say that it has had an incredible impact on my career. Even my style, I like to look at different stylists and see how I can incorporate that. Many of you notice I wear a flower, but it is because it's my flower power. when we talk about identity, really the flower power represents a special thing for me. And I think about the story, and this is an old story of Dumbo, and how Dumbo had the feather, and with the feather, he believed that he could fly. And it was at a point where he lost the feather and he thought he couldn't fly anymore, but utilized that feather as a symbol that he could always fly. And that's one of the things that I try to call my flower. I call it my flower power. And I think it's part of my identity and who I am. And it actually came as a result of style, but at the same time, it means something special to me. So I think that as we talk about identity and career, not only am I being present, but also being able to bring creativity to everything that I do, and also in working with my teams.
Amazing. Janita.
Okay, sorry. Let me pause for a quick second.
Mhm.
Hi. So, for me, so we're talking about the arts, right? We're talking about how it's impacted our careers. And for me, I guess it's kind of impacted me personally, which then has then impacted me professionally. I think about the arts. I think about art, literature, fashion, just cultural expressions. And of course, again, we're celebrating Black History Month. So I think about that as a Caribbean woman, a Caribbean American woman, and the different ways in which people from African people, Caribbean people, Black American people have used art to both preserve our history, build senses of community, create movements, influence culture, and all those different ways in which it touches our lives. And I see myself as both a consumer of art and a creator. I've used these different forms of art to help share my experiences and to kind of take my message further when I feel like words alone are not going to be able to properly help me convey really what I want to get across. And it's that creative expression that's allowed me to build this career as an ethics and compliance professional. From how I conduct trainings to the analogies I use, the ways I try to relate to people from different backgrounds and experiences, which is crucial at a global organization, right? But it's also just how I translate the law into ways that people can actually understand how it applies to their work. It's not enough just to regurgitate, what the DOJ just said. It's helping to paint that picture for people and walk them through, like, what does this practically mean for you?
Yes, that's so inspiring, and it truly speaks to the power of the arts. I relate to everything that you both said, and it's a true story into how the arts is like the middle ground that can connect us all. You talked about policy, you talked about public sector, right? As a kid, I moved around 14, 15 times before finally settling in, and the arts was how I made new friends, whether that was music, something I saw on TV, but it was my way to get buy-in and to get friends at these strange lands that I was moving into. And within that same breath, I would really like to know that everyone has a testimony, and every moment, right? There are times in our life where we've had to persevere through something. So with that being said, can you please share a moment in your life where the arts helped to shape you and helped you overcome an obstacle that has come full circle in your career today?
Yeah, I can start us off. So for me, just a vulnerable moment as a child, I had a speech impediment. And that was tough to overcome. I had a really, really heavy stutter. That feeling, cat got your tongue, like that was me. I had so much I wanted to say and to share, and I was always like, and so, the arts is what helped me kind of like pull myself out of that. In high school, I was in school musicals. I was on an improv comedy team. In undergrad, I captained our step team. And while I did write a lot of poetry starting from middle school, it wasn't really until I got to law school, so like quite some time, that I then used that poetry and turned it into. Then I started to do performance art, spoken word, and each of those stages of my life, it kind of helped me find new ways to communicate, and to kind of find my confidence. And a lot of that just came from learning to accept the quirks that are me, talking with the hands and all of that. And it just helped me to embrace uncertainty and when there are mistakes and people don't know that you're making a mistake and you got to just roll with it sometimes. I mentioned that, I'm a Caribbean American woman. My parents immigrated from the West Indies, and they both, shocking, have accents. And my dad shared a lot about his experience as someone coming here and having a thick accent and the challenges that he faced as a result. And he always reminded me, he's like, listen, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If no one knows what you want to say, if you can't get a message across. So he would always challenge me to, watch people on the news, watch impactful speeches, and kind of learn from those folks and figure out, how am I going to get my message across? So, the arts are like wildly impactful for me, which I don't know that there's always that clear distinction. I'm a lawyer, right? I don't know that we always draw the distinction between the arts and then these more, or not known as creative fields, but it's led to this full circle moment today. Like, I sit on this panel, I sit on other panels, I speak publicly, and the kid back then with the stutter would have never thought that I would be having conversations like this in front of anybody because didn't think I could speak.
I think about that as well. And when I was younger, contrary to popular belief, I was a very shy kid. I didn't speak up. I really kept to myself. I didn't really say much when I was in crowds. And I remember seeing speakers like Martin Luther King. I remember hearing oration by like James Baldwin, and seeing, hearing singers and performers like Patti LaBelle and others who would just really command the audience. And I always wanted to do that. And it wasn't until I was much younger and I was actually in a play where I was Martin Luther King as a fourth grader, and really had my first opportunity to speak in front of a large crowd. It was the most nervous I've ever been in my life, but it gave me an opportunity to really break that desire to really be shy and not really communicate my message, to being more vocal and communicating my message. And I think that has helped me throughout my journey and throughout my career. I've got involved in a lot of nonprofits while in college, through the National Society of Black Engineers, as well as through my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And then even going beyond that into my career, I joined an organization called Toastmasters, which helped me with public speaking and being able to speak in front of large crowds, to the point where I was responsible for presenting to a 600-person company all hands, which was definitely a challenge, but definitely an opportunity. So I would say how you present, how you fluctuate your voice, how you really show up and show out. That is the things that I got from the arts, not only looking at TV, looking at movies, being able to go to presentations. All those things really do really resonate with me in regards to how I was able to overcome, but also presence, and being aware of your audience and being observing the room and understanding how to really connect. And those are things I think the arts definitely helps out with, because as a performer, you have to be able to connect with your audience and make sure that your message is resonating with them. And that is something that I think I benefited from throughout the years.
Definitely. And your answers are so inspiring and a true testimony to not just the power of the arts, but the power of the mind. You spoke about how arts have helped you persevere through certain moments in life to become where you are today in these achievements. So that is amazing. Before we move forward, I'd like to just note to the audience to, again, feel free to ask any questions there in the live chat. We are having a Q&A session, so the more questions, the better. I want to get back to something that we touched on, and that was fraternities, that was step shows and things like that. And with it being Black History Month, I think that is really important to sit here for a second, because it's something that we actually all have in common. And I'll get into a little bit of that, because one, historically, stepping has African roots. So being Black History Month, I think that is important to highlight that those rhythmic and like percussive elements of stepping derive directly from African dance and movement, right? And how many African cultures incorporated dance as a form of communication, a form of celebration, and just expression on its own. Like you, Daryl, I myself belong to an African American fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And stepping became, I would say, more of an organized and formalized thing within our fraternities and sororities. So our organizations incorporated these traditions as a form of unity, a form of discipline and structure and self-expression, because we all bring a little bit of flavor, different flavor to how we do things. And as you know, it takes hours and hours of precise practice and preparation for step shows, right? Whether that's a yard show on a college campus, or you might be performing at a national event. And so how we show up today professionally goes back to those roots of stepping, of how we need to show up on those stages. Also, stepping has ties into the military, right? And during the 20th century, how African American soldiers they developed these like rhythmic drills and chants as a way to build camaraderie and to boost the morale, considering everything that Black soldiers were going through during that time. So I think that's an amazing point and something that we should really highlight as a part of Black History Month.
Yeah, I learned a lot from STEP. I learned, I watched, other schools and people that I admired who were, part of the Divine Nine, and see the STEP shows, and I really wanted that experience. And where I went to undergrad, I went to Siena College, shout out. Great school. We didn't have, I don't think that's changed today, but Siena doesn't have Greeks on campus. So I wanted to figure out, like, well, how do I cultivate that? How do I get that same community? And so, some folks and I got together and we started our own STEP team. And STEP is so cool because it teaches you, I mean, I think being on any kind of team, right? It teaches you, you're learning leadership, you're learning compromise and collaboration, but STEP is particularly interesting because we have to have one sound. Right? Like, you can't be like, one person is killing it on this end and someone in the back is offbeat. Like, you need one sound. So it really forces you to pay attention, slow down, and listen to your teammates and make sure that, we're all aligned and we're in it together.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think that it does have a lot to say about teamwork, to say about goals, and being able to overcome adversity. When you are stepping, you definitely hope for that great performance. So whether it is your step team, whether it is a band, whether it is military drill, or even as many of us watch the Super Bowl, right? And seeing an organized group perform, and all of them try to have the same goal, but everyone have a specific focus too. Because as Janita mentioned, she's part of a different team than my team, but we all have to work in synchronization in order to achieve an outcome. And I think that is what STEP has taught us, is not only the preparations and the patience, because if many of us online today tried to join a STEP team, it would take a little while before you learned all the moves, right? And performed it to perfection. But at the same time, as you continue to go through it, and as you work with people who have experience, then you can achieve better outcomes. And I think that is the opportunity in this. But also, Janita, you cover creativity perfectly, right? You mentioned that there was an absence. And in that absence, you were able to create in open space, in void. And that is something that I think we can bring to the table when we talk about creativity, is how do we look at void, bring our own creative juices to the forefront, and then produce something that is needed that can help fill that void.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Amazing. So let's move this conversation forward a little bit. And this is going to be a two-part question. Considering everything we've talked about today, how does Elastic's culture allow you to show up authentically? And how does showing up authentically even affect the productivity of a company? Let's start with you, Daryl.
Well, when I joined Elastic, it was mentioned a couple of times, source code. And when I went to undergrad, I started out at Morehouse, but ended up at the University of Pittsburgh. I did computer engineering. And when we talk about source code, it was just really that baseline code that you had to use in order to make a website or application work. So when they kept saying it, I'm like, well, when am I going to start coding again? Because I haven't coded in years. And the way they applied it to, just as far as the way that we work, that being part of our baseline operational code or operational focus was very exciting to me. And one of the things that it really focused on, and one of the things I get excited about, is they talk about being humble, but yet being ambitious. and that you can actually be both, right? You don't have to be a shell of yourself in order to achieve outcomes, but at the same time, as you achieve those outcomes, know you're helping the greater good. And also being able to look at the idea of as you are, and being able to come authentic. And that's one of the things I love about the organization is the diversity that is represented in the organization. That not only are we of different ethnicities, but also of different platitudes and understandings. We all come from a different space. We all learned in a different environment, yet we're bringing all those collective skills together to achieve a great outcome for our customers. And when I think about how it's a search outcome, right? How it all starts with search. It makes me think about how we're all continuously searching for some outcome. And that when we get those little pieces together in order to achieve that outcome, that is what Elastic Source Code actually helps us do, is to bring those ideas, is to be authentic, is to be ambitious, but also show up as you are. And that is something that I get excited about because I want to represent who I am, but also contribute to the greater collective.
Definitely. And how about yourself, Janita?
So, similar. I focused heavily on the source code when I was applying to come to join Elastic. And it's a unique document, right? Like, I think we're so used to looking at, there's like, you got the value statements. Sometimes you've got, there's like a great tagline, you've got great campaigns. But the source code was written, it was clearly written with intention. You can see kind of woven throughout the source code. Well, first, we'll talk about how it starts by saying, we're not perfect, we're human. That sets the stage, right? Then we move into talking about empowering you to think about how do you do your best work? How do you need to structure your day so that you can show up as your best, taking into account everything you've got going on in your personal life. Then we talk about being distributed by design, which you have to be intentional when you're distributed by design. You've got folks all over the globe. You have to really think about the different people that make up the org, the different languages that they speak, the cultures they come from, the viewpoints that they bring. How do you bring all those things together and allow people to truly come as they are, but be able to move forward in a unified way? And one of the things that I loved reading, again, back to the story about my dad, right? There's a quote in there that says, we all come in different shapes with different interests and skills. We all have an accent. Celebrate it. Just come as you are. And I love that. And how that impacts us in terms of productivity, going back to STEP, as Daryl mentioned earlier, if you tried to come and learn right now, it's going to take you a bit. It's going to take a bit, right? You got to, first of all, dust off the muscles, get back into it. And I remember, the first year, the second year, I'm like, okay, this is how long it takes us to do a routine. And I remember bringing in new people. And then at a certain point every year, there's the aha moment where you've fallen into sync.
Mm-hmm.
You've thought about the different ways people learn, the way that they receive feedback, the way that they can best show up and collaborate with you. And then there's a turning point every year where all of a sudden we can choreograph on the fly. It becomes just secondhand to us. And I think the similar thing happens at a place like Elastic, where we've got folks all over, but we're intentional about how we incorporate their perspectives and how we best utilize everyone's best assets so that we can fly, right? So the source code for me is it was something that I really, it was important to me. I focused on it and I listened for it when I spoke to people, when I went through the interview process to see if those same tenets made their way off the page and into actual practice.
Most definitely. And you guys hit the nail on the head with that one regarding our source code and culture and everything of that nature. So we've talked about how the both of you have embraced the arts to help establish your identity as a professional today. In turn, you've achieved career success. So what advice would you give to those who are looking to bridge the gaps between embracing your identity and taking ownership of their careers, considering our topic today?
One area that I think is really important is as we think about, career, it's a journey and not a race, right? Many of us who've gotten to certain positions didn't get there overnight. We didn't just show up one day, similar to the step show, right? And you're not coming the first day and winning the performance. And that's, I think, one of the other things that each of us can speak to is that every year, not only we tried our best to get better, but the competition got better. So how are you showing up and improving yourself so that this way the best possible you could be represented every day that you show up to the office, that you show up to your respective environment? So I would say that having that, just a macro awareness and micro speed and focus on really continuous improvement means a lot, but also having a great network. One thing about step shows is that if you're around some good steppers or if you have a good step master, that definitely does help in you having a phenomenal performance. So being able to identify good leadership is also important.
Mhm.
And I would say the last thing is to have an open mind when it comes to things that may help you advance. So therefore, we have certain things that we've done, and I could talk about that for days, but always have an open mind because someone may have a great idea, and no matter where it's coming from, whether they're just joined the team, whether they've been on the team for a long time, whether they're outside of your organization, at least be open to evaluate it and see how it can apply. My grandfather used to tell me, take all information and use what you need. And that's what I tend to do.
Amazing. How about you, Janita?
I love it. I think you have to be courageously authentic. And I use the word courageous because it's not easy to do, right? To suggest that it's easy to do is to disregard the very real experiences of people who are from marginalized communities. It is not easy to do. So where does that leave you, right? You got to be courageous. You got to be intentional. You got to think critically about your values and about your goals. And you got to be intentional about aligning yourself with people and places that don't force you to forsake one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get it perfect, right? It's an iterative process, but you want to be in places and with people that want to get it right and are committed to getting it right and committed to hearing you out so that they can get it right. We talked about the source code. I looked at that heavily when I was looking to come to Elastic. I do not apply to a place without reading their code of conduct first. I want to see what your values are. I look to see how are you talking about things like diversity and inclusion. I want to see that those things leave those pages and they actually go into practice. You can't have an ethical culture without diversity and inclusion. So you got to be really intentional about who and what you align yourself with. And again, doesn't have to have it all figured out, doesn't have to be perfect. There's got to be a real interest, dedication, and commitment to these things. And if you're in a place where you feel like it's not quite aligned, is there opportunity to really find allies for you to make those changes happen? But you got to be intentional. It does not happen by accident, and certainly not overnight.
Definitely. You know what? We've talked about some amazing topics today. I'm truly going to leave this conversation inspired and informed by the both of you. So now it's time for our Q&A. Are there any questions? We'll let the questions roll in. Don't be shy. Any questions? We've covered a lot of topics from the arts to step shows to our source code here at Elastic, which is something unique and sets this company apart. So,
you guys, this is making me misstep. Damn. I mean, I can't jump into it now. It'll be a little rough on my body, but
Right.
Yeah, don't be shy. Let's get some questions in there. Yeah. And it's okay. If there's no questions, we will wrap up and we'll leave you with this conversation here today. We would love for you to learn more about Elastic and our careers, so you can find more information on the next title card of how to reach us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Take
one.
care. Bye.